the topic that simply won't go away. And there's a lot of urban legends and internet myths out there that just seemingly hang around in the stratosphere for an unusually long time, like these myths that just won't go away. One of those is the gender pay gap. And for the life of me, it's now the better part of a generation and a half that we've known that what they say that women makes, whatever it is, 72, 75 cents on the dollar for every man, it's just a false comparison. And yet, for some reason, it continues to persist. And now it's taken on new life in the story that says the gender pay gap has grown for college graduates, which is a little bit more interesting here. The Economic Policy Institute comes out with a report. It says the gender wage gap has continued to grow among college graduates since 2000, and that women now earn $8,000 less a year than their male peers, and sometimes even the same occupation. Joining me from the Women's Leadership Live Conference, Debbie Saviano. Debbie, good morning. How you been?
I'm good. How are you, Scott?
I'm good. Break this down for me here. Is this an extension of the gender pay gap myth?
I think that it's a passionate topic, obviously, and it's good for sound bites, if you will. But, it's still, research indicates women make, as you said, $8,000 a year less for college graduates coming out. Now, the question is, why is that?
Mm-hmm.
Is it job choice? Is it discrimination? What is it? I personally like to think it's, in many cases, it's the occupations that women are choosing to go into, occupational differences.
I'd agree with that, too, because normally that's the case with the 75 cents on the dollar. It doesn't include the fact that women tend to choose occupations for whatever reason that are ones that pay less. We know that the majority, and I kind of started this last time you were on a few weeks ago, is when we have, I forget what I called it, but men are way more likely than women to get injured or killed on the job, and essentially you guys would have to work till the October of next year in order to make up the difference in the amount of deaths at work. So it's the same comparison. You make more money because the job's riskier.
Well, and also, let's take the STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, math. Men coming out of college with STEM degrees, if you will, bachelor's degree, 40% men, 29% women. Doctoral level, that increases to 58% for men. So obviously, if you have a higher number, and again, I'm advocating for equal pay among everyone. I mean, obviously, equality is the goal. But if 58% of the men have doctorate level degrees to 33% women, the men are going to have more of the high-paying STEM jobs, and therefore the pay salary is going to be higher for them. So, again, women make up half the workforce. I personally think we have to encourage women to be self-advocates, to go out there and get the same degrees. And I think men are much more gifted at negotiation than women are. A lot of women don't know to negotiate when they go into a job.
I think that's a great point. My wife has kind of changed careers, and she used to be in the media industry and television, and she would just kind of go along with the flow. And she knew she was making less probably in some cases, but as she got a little bit older, and let's face it, we tend to put up with a lot less noise, and that's why old men are crazy. It's because they just look at how you hit a certain age, you're like, I don't care anymore. I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking. I don't worry about stepping on your toes. I don't give a damn. And I think women too get to that age where it's like, hey, listen, she's a successful realtor now because she said, nah, this is what it is, and if you don't like it, you find somebody else that wants to, whisper lies into your ear, but I'm not going to do it, and that's why she's successful.
And that's why we need to have more women like your wife to have an awareness of finding their own voice, mentoring other women, being their own self-advocates, knowing what they want and saying, you know what, I'm good at what I do. I have a certain skill set. I bring you value to the company, the organization, and I want this much money. Now, you have to be aware of what's out there, do your research. Negotiations is an art and a science. You have to know who you're talking to and how you can best interact with them. But then you also have to have a strategy, and one of those is research. And thank goodness for the internet today, we can go everywhere and find out what salaries are, et cetera. So when we go in and negotiate, we know what we're requesting, and we know why we're requesting it. Pay scale, Glassdoor. There's so many places that will give you industry figures about what people should be making. But I think standing up and having a voice, I think women, and I think we're getting better at that. And I think we're modeling that better for young women, especially millennials. A lot of them now today are coming up and saying, you know what, I'm not going to do that. And if I do, I want this and this. The key is they have to have the same skill set and the same educational level and expertise as the counterparts, regardless of who that is. So therefore, they deserve to have the same amount of money, if not more, because they're good at what they do. That's the key. We have to get women to have the educational level inequality of what their male counterparts are. And if women aren't going into STEM fields, they're not going to get hired for those positions. So encouraging women to do that is crucial.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, why not just say this, is let's force women, the same people who claim that there's this $8,000 pay gap out of college for females and males, why don't we just have like indentured servitude, Debbie, and force them into careers that pay more money and say, hey, listen, we're going to put a quota on the number of women that can go into social work and teaching and things like that. We're not taking any. Can you imagine the outrage?
Yeah.
We're putting a cap on it. Fine. Yeah, we're only taking X amount of women in this class because you know what? We want the pay gap to go away. What about freedom of choice?
I think that's it. I think a lot of women traditionally have gone into caring work, if you will, education and health. But we have to go back to the DNA factor of that too. Traditionally, women did that because traditionally, if you will, maybe years ago, the woman's job was the second job. The man was the primary caretaker, breadwinner, if you will. Women's jobs were the second income. They didn't pay as much in education because women didn't expect as much. But there again, women didn't expect as much. Had they gone in with the same desires and said, you know what, I need this, it would have paid more, but they didn't. And so therefore, I think we have to look at traditional roles. And again, I think those are changing. I know a lot of men who their wives make more money than they do. And so therefore, because they have young families, they say, you know what, it makes more sense for me to stay home. So there's definitely gender reversal roles at home than what there used to be because of the woman could, in some cases, make more than the man can make.
Yeah,
so
I can't really speak for, I can't speak for, traditionalists, maybe baby boomers, older people, where the gender roles were more defined. But as someone who's a Gen Xer and certainly millennials, hey, find me a guy in that group that doesn't want their spouse, significant other, their wife, to make more money than they do. The answer is not just yes, it's hell yes.
I would have to agree with you. Yes, whoever can make it, for sure.
Right, that's less work I got to do. There's less burden on me. There's less on my shoulders. It's not the old days where it was, men bring home the bacon, the women cook it up. Let's face it, we're all dual-income households now pretty much primarily. There are still, a number of women who stay home or men who stay home, and that's fine. But the majority of us are dual-income households. Ours is, Debbie. I'm sure yours is as well. A lot of people listening. And there isn't a spouse in the face of the earth who's going to want their spouse earning more. Because it's good for the whole household. Absolutely.
Well, our CEO, Women's Leadership Live, Linda McMahon, who her and her husband Vince started WWE, she tells the story of when they first started out and her role in making sure that the women were looked at in the same way as the men. And is making sure that the salary and that the expertise level and that the skill set was comparable. And if it was, then the salary was as well. But it's a challenge because companies are all trying to make money and they want to have the best bottom line. So another way is salary audits. Let companies go in and say, if in fact someone says they don't think they have it for the same, again, equal job, equal time on the floor, everything. If it's equality there, then the salary audit is going to show, are they making more? But again, I go back to Scott, that negotiation skills for women, they're critical. They're absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
Women have to know how to negotiate for themselves.
I think that's critical.
We don't always stand up for ourselves.
Well, you're right about that. I think there's another component to this too, Debbie Saviano, with Women's Leadership Live, as we talk about this new story, new twist on the pay gap myth that says female college graduates will earn $8,000 less a year coming out of school than their male peers. And I think it's just maybe some more of the same twisted logic here. But what about this element? There's an element here that works mainly for women, and it might for men, but largely women. And this is this: the better looking you are, the better your chances are at making more money. Yes or no? I think that's especially true for. What about women when it comes to negotiation who flirt with the person they're trying to get a deal with? Really attractive women do that. Is that wrong? This is the third rail, Debbie, but it's true, right? I mean, I've seen it. I know people that do it. How many women go out and say, I'm going out for drinks tonight, and realize they're not going to have to pay for a single drink? They'll flirt with guys to buy them drinks all night. Isn't that negotiation?
That is negotiation. I would prefer, but again, I would rather go back to, that research shows that certain types of men are elected to president, how tall they are, what they look like, what color their hair is. So I think it goes across the genders. But I agree with you on negotiation. But I think if a woman is strong in who she is and knows the value she brings to the company, because at the end of the day, the company just wants to make revenue. They want to make profits, right?
Absolutely.
So if she's good at that, but she has to know she's good at that and stand in that. So I think there's much more power in that because not all of us were, born to look like,
Well, that's true. Exactly. But if you are, work it, right, girl?
Absolutely. I don't disagree with that. I've said many times, if I look like that and I was able to do that, and again, this is totally personal opinion here, I would use it. You bet I would. Because, see, that's not against the person doing it. I look at that as the weakness of the person who is falling for that.
Yeah, but, maybe you're not blessed in the negotiation. I mean, obviously you're a very smart woman, Debbie, and, the brains are sometimes, you hit the, I don't know, you get the golden ticket where it's a combination of brains and beauty, which is very rare. People like yourself, for example. And but on the other hand, I mean, look at look at Donald Trump's ex-wives and go, why? I mean, these are very, very attractive women. I don't know though that could they make that kind of money on their own.
Well, keep in mind, I think he's very smart and brings around him very smart people, and I think if you look at his daughter,
incredible.
Extremely bright.
She's the whole package right there, brains and beauty. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think there's a lot of women that do that, but I do think, and I want to, say for Linda McMahon, our CEO, and Stacey Shefflin, who's been on HSN for almost 20 years, she preaches that beauty comes from inside. When you have the ability to know that you're beautiful inside as a person, then you can take that to the job. You can take that and benefit that to your boss, to your company, to your organization, to your team. And then when you put smarts on top of that, which we all have, we just have to make sure women go in the right fields and know how to get the right education. They got the whole package. Yeah. We have to help young women know that that's what they need to do. Go into the fields they're going to pay you the most money, and then know how to negotiate those salaries once you get there. Don't just assume that the salary they offer you is the best one, because they're not going to offer you the top salary.
No, of course not.
But you have to know that. You have to know it.
Well, we've seen that with buying cars, for example, that women tend to get worse deals than men. And then when Saturn came, they said, we're going to do this law pricing thing. And guess what? It didn't work out because people, mainly the men who buy the cars, want to negotiate.
Right. See, and so that's more innate. That's what we have to teach women. We have to teach women how to negotiate, know what to do when they go in there, so that they're able to get, have the strategy. So it's a win-win. It's a win for the company, and it's a win for the individual. So everyone's happy. And with millennials today, keeping millennials in the job force, the average is 2 years, and you're blessed or lucky. You're extremely fortunate if you get above 3 years with a millennial, unless you offer them certain things they're looking for. And so teaching those young women how to negotiate and how to make sure they're getting what they're due with their male counterparts is a huge skill. One of the things we're going to do in Dallas, May 19th through 22nd, I have to get that in, Scott.
Please.
At our event.
Please.
At our event, because we want women to know how to negotiate. Our two top line opening speakers are Charlotte Jones Anderson of the Dallas Cowboys and Stephanie McMahon of WWE. These are women in a male-dominated field. And they, those two women are, Charlotte's the one who's built the huge new stadium here for Dallas Cowboys. We've got some incredibly bright, talented, smart women today. We just have to teach them the same packages of business that we've taught them in.
Well, maybe I ought to do that in college, and put you guys out of business. But I mean, if you want to decrease the pay gap or get women in these jobs, either got to force them in the jobs like the STEMs, or you got to give them these skills to negotiate. Hey, I always appreciate it. Debbie Saviano. What's the website again?
It's womensleadershiplive.com, and thank you so much, Scott. You have a great day.
You too. There you go. An excuse to go to Dallas. Enjoy some nice weather.